Today's submitted analytical brief tackles the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's recent enforcement order against BloomTech and its CEO for deceiving students about loan costs and inflating job placement rates.
Right, and also banning them from lending activities and forcing them to stop collecting payments.
Exactly. Now, the material demonstrates a really deep understanding of the source facts, but there are significant opportunities to elevate the structural focus here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to digging into this.
So let's jump right into the feedback. Restructuring this section to highlight executive liability as a primary focal point is absolutely crucial.
I completely agree. Right now, the weakness is that the submitted draft extensively details the corporate fines against BloomTech and, the rescinding of the income share agreements.
The ISAs, right?
Yeah, the ISAs. But it buries the fact that CEO Austin Allred was personally penalized. It essentially treats the company and the founder as a single interchangeable entity.
Which is a huge missed opportunity. I mean, treating the CEO's penalty as a mere footnote is like writing a review of a play and completely forgetting to mention the lead actor.
That is a great analogy. It misses the whole point of what the CFPB is doing here.
Right. So the suggestion here is to flip that structure. The author needs to demonstrate the CFPB's stated shift toward holding specific individuals accountable for corporate deception.
Is there a risk that focusing solely on the corporate fines might overlook the chilling effect this personal ban is meant to have on other Silicon Valley executives?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the corporate veil is usually this fortress for startup founders.
Exactly.
When a federal agency pierces that veil, it's a massive shockwave. So, for concrete examples, the author should really pull in that direct quote from CFPB Director Rohit Chopra.
Oh, the one about individual executives?
Yeah, where he says, today's action underscores our increased focus on investigating individual executives and, when appropriate, charging them with breaking the law.
That quote is perfect. It explicitly shows this wasn't an accident. It's a stated policy goal.
Right. And to build on that, they should highlight the specific contrast in the penalties. Like, Allred was personally fined $100,000.
Wow.
Yeah, which is actually more than the company's civil penalty of, I think it was $64,235.
Wait, really? The CEO paid more out of pocket than the corporate entity did?
He did. And more importantly, he was handed a 10-year personal ban from any student lending activities.
That is wild.
It is. And the author needs to frame this as a precedent-setting warning for other venture-backed founders. These are just a few ways to fix this, but bringing that specific data forward changes the whole tone of the piece.
It really does, because, historically, corporate fines just become the cost of doing business, right?
Oh, absolutely. The VC backers absorb the hit, they rebrand, and the executive just walks away.
Ready for the next startup. But a 10-year personal ban mechanically alters everything. You can't put him on a board that deals with consumer credit now.
Nope. It fundamentally changes the narrative. It's no longer a company got caught. It's the regulatory environment for founders has changed.
So true.
Okay, so building on how the CFPB is enforcing accountability, let's look at the specific legal tools they use to dismantle BloomTech's marketing claims.
Right. Let's get into the statutes.
Exactly. Explicitly tying the deceptive marketing claims to the legal frameworks of the Truth in Lending Act and the Holder Rule is necessary to make the analysis legally grounded.
Yeah, because the analysis of the deceptive marketing is really compelling right now, but it completely overlooks those fundamental statutory violations that actually gave the enforcement action its teeth.
Right. The weakness here is that the material accurately describes the deceptive, risk-free marketing and the inflated job placement rates.
Advertising up to 86% when internal metrics showed what, 30 to 50%?
Yeah, exactly. But it neglects to anchor those deceptions to the specific TILA and Holder Rule violations that legally redefine these ISAs as illegal loans.
The material makes a strong case for the deception by highlighting the CEO's tweet about a 100% placement rate that was actually based on a sample size of one student.
I know, that part is so egregious.
It's crazy, but that makes sense. But could the evidence also support a deeper exploration into the Holder Rule? Because if we don't explain why selling the loans to investors strips students of their rights, we miss the core legal vulnerability.
Exactly. If a company just lies on Twitter, that's bad PR, maybe false advertising. But you have to explain the mechanics of how it became a federal lending violation.
Right. So the suggestion is to explicitly tie those marketing claims directly to the legal frameworks of TILA and the holder rule.
Yes. And for concrete examples, instead of just stating the ISAs were deceptive, the author should explicitly mention the failure to disclose the average $4,000 finance charge.
And the annual percentage rate, the APR.
Right. Omitting that is a direct mechanical violation of the Truth in Lending Act.
Because TILA exists specifically so consumers can compare credit products side by side, right?
Exactly. With a standard student loan, the bank has to show you the APR and the total finance charge in that very specific format.
The Schumer box.
Yes, the Schumer box. BloomTech sidestepped all of that by saying, hey, this is an income share agreement. This is not a loan.
Which left students completely blind to the fact that they were paying $4,000 just for the privilege of financing.
Exactly. It wasn't just opaque. It was actively breaking federal law designed to prevent blind debt traps.
And then for a second concrete example, they need to detail the holder rule violations specifically.
Yes, please.
They have to explain how BloomTech sold these ISAs to investors up front, thereby depriving students of their legal rights to assert claims and defenses against the new owners of their debt.
That part is so critical, and it's often misunderstood. It's like imagine buying a used car, and the dealer immediately sells your loan to a third-party bank.
Okay.
If the car engine explodes the next day because the dealer lied to you, the holder rule ensures you can legally stop paying the bank.
Right. The bank inherits the liability of the dealer's deception. You don't have to keep paying for a broken car just because the debt changed hands.
Exactly. But BloomTech deliberately omitted the holder rule provision in their ISA contracts.
Wow. So when they bundled and sold these ISAs to investors for upfront cash, the students were effectively stripped of their right to dispute the debt based on the school's actions.
Right. So think back to that 86% placement rate lie. The student graduates, realizes the curriculum is useless, and can't find a job.
But they still owe $30,000 to a hedge fund.
Exactly. A third-party hedge fund that has absolutely no legal obligation to care about the quality of the education.
It's a brilliantly constructed, yet completely illegal trap.
Yes. And when the author leaves out the mechanics of TILA and the holder rule, they're leaving out the blueprint of that trap.
These concrete examples are just a couple of ways to ground the analysis, but they really provide the actual architecture of the CFPB's legal attack.
They do. So now that we've established the individual accountability and the legal mechanisms, we must ask what this means for the broader educational landscape moving forward.
The industry implications.
Exactly. Elevating the conclusion to explore how the CFPB officially branding ISAs as standard loans disrupts the entire venture capital narrative is vital here.
Yes, because right now the weakness is that the conclusion reads like a press release recap.
It really does.
It just summarizes the penalties like halting payment collections for graduates without qualifying jobs and eliminating finance charges for those making under $70,000.
Right. It just lists the remedies.
But it completely stops short of addressing the existential threat this poses to the popular income share agreement business model.
Yeah, as I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that the CFPB simply stopped bad behavior, but it ignores the ripple effects.
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of the broader edtech industry? If ISAs are now legally treated as traditional credit products under TILA, doesn't that fundamentally change how boot camps can operate and market themselves?
Oh, entirely. The author is treating this like an isolated lightning strike rather than a permanent change in the climate.
Right.
So the suggestion is to elevate the conclusion by exploring the so what.
The macro-level impact.
Exactly. Exploring how defining these as standard loans shatters the VC narrative that ISAs are, non-debt equity investments in a student's future.
Paid until you do, with the reality exposed by the CFPB.
Right, because the reality is they got paid immediately.
Exactly. Because the loans were sold to investors up front, BloomTech got paid long before a student ever finished the program.
The alignment of incentives was a total illusion.
And, as another example, they should note how the mandate to allow current students to withdraw without penalty or switch to a lawful third-party loan sets a strict regulatory precedent.
Oh, that's a great point. It proves that ISAs cannot masquerade as risk-free partnerships just to dodge standard lending disclosures.
Right. Using these examples, which again are just a few ways to tackle this, gives the ending so much forward-looking weight.
It does. I mean, if an educational startup suddenly has to hand a prospective student a federally mandated form disclosing a $4,000 finance charge up front,
Their conversion rate is going to absolutely plummet.
exactly, the slick marketing hook is gone. If the author expands the conclusion to encompass this, they aren't just summarizing a legal case, they're forecasting a massive market correction.
Which loops perfectly back to the first point about the personal liability. If you're a VC on the board of one of these startups right now, you are immediately calling your outside counsel.
Oh, panic mode for sure.
The personal liability for founders, combined with the legal dismantling of the core financial product, it's a devastating one-two punch.
It really is. The author has all the raw data to make this macro-level point. They just need to widen the aperture.
Move from the trees to the forest.
Exactly. So let's briefly recap the 3 core areas for improvement. First, center executive liability to show the shifting regulatory focus toward personal accountability, rather than hiding the CEO's penalty behind the corporate fines.
Right.
Second, anchor the deceptive marketing claims to the specific statutory breaches of TILA and the holder rule, explaining the actual mechanics of the deception.
And third, expand the conclusion to address the macro-level impact on the entire income share agreement model, moving beyond just a summary of the penalties.
Exactly.
So just to summarize the actionable steps for the listener, integrate the specific fine amounts and the quote about the CEO's personal liability early on. Map the marketing lies directly to the hidden finance charges and the intentional stripping of consumer rights via the holder rule.
Yep.
And rewrite the conclusion to focus on the industry-wide ripple effects, contrasting that VC narrative with the reality of non-compliant debt.
Perfect.
Well, we want to really thank the listener for such a highly detailed submission.
Absolutely. The grasp of the factual timeline here is excellent.
It really is. We'd love to invite the listener to revise the document with these concepts in mind and submit it again for a future critique.
We would love to see how this analysis evolves. Because at the end of the day, a regulatory enforcement action isn't just a list of fines. It's the blueprint of exactly how a market illusion was built and how it was finally dismantled.